the whole premise of today's training is all about generating winners when you can't pick a winner, right? So we know just based upon what Meta's new lattice structure is doing, that Meta in particular is going to get real cranky here about how they want us to actually generate all the creative that we're generating so that it's suited towards engagement. Jeez, it took me a minute to figure out where I was going with that. Suited towards engagement. So because of this, I went down this interesting mathematical kind of a thing, trying to figure out how many ads should I make, how many concepts should I make from all this stuff, because I'm constantly testing my own theories. And one of the things that most of you probably know in here is like, I don't love volume, mostly because it burns out teams, but also because I find it to be too difficult to manage or like control the inputs, right? It's really hard for me to decide what to make if I have to make like 80 of these a week. So I made a calculator to try and figure this out. So if we just look at how many distinct ads you could build with just like the regular range of things that we have to operate with, hooks, stories, CTAs, different creators, backgrounds, like products. If we actually add up like all of the stuff in here, you can get a lot of distinct ads. And this isn't even that high of an amount. This assumes that I'm running 4 ads this week. So I went in here and I built this because I want to try and figure out, can you actually generate more winners if you just start putting in more inputs? Or is it better to just pull the lever of quality over quantity? Because I'm constantly trying to check, is this correct? Is this correct? So let's look at this real quick because I want to see from you guys how many ads you're running every single week, because I ran a poll on this on Twitter as well. And from what I can tell, at least, people are not doing nearly as many distinct ad types as they think they are. So we can just mess with the math here. If we do 10 ads a week, which is 10 hooks, there's going to be 10 stories, right? Ish. Hopefully each one of those is a different story. Let's say we're just doing one CTA. Maybe we've got 4 creators in here. They're doing 4 backgrounds, 1 product and offering, and maybe probably 10 different individual opening frames. We now have 16,000 distinct ads we could create. And this is from one specific angle, one specific like story that we're trying to tell. The only reason I'm showing you guys this is because as I'm going through thinking about this, I'm like, there is no possible way that we could ever test the sheer volume. Exactly. And only 5 ads are going to get spent. The sheer volume of ads we would need to test to be able to really come up with a lot of winners very, very quickly would require massive amounts of ads. And this is only if you're doing like 1 distinct story at a time. If you have different scenes, this changes the math entirely. Look at this. If there's different scenes in different orders, we now have 5 billion ads that we could test from one specific angle. We're going to come back to this in a second, but I have sat here and played with this for like a while. If it's just like, what if we just like cut creators out? We only have 1 creator. What if we cut like opening frames and we use the same exact frame? It's still wild. It's just bonkers the amount of combinations that you have with all of the elements that we have to play with in here. So I went through and tried to figure out, okay, what does this mean exactly? And why is it like, what are we supposed to do with this? If I can actually make 145 million different ads from this, how am I supposed to know which one is going to make a winner, which one's not? The only reason I built this calculator is because I'm trying to decide like, what's the best strategy from this? Then there's too many things and too many elements for us to test to be able to do all of them well. So which ones should we do well? Everybody on Twitter assumes this. Anytime I hear anybody like give advice on ads, it's always like, just make a better ad. I think this is what they're assuming is going to happen, is a bell curve. In bell curves in mathematics, from what I understand, if you start to have like a lot of data that goes in, typically you'll start to get this like average effect. Height is a good example of this, right? Like people are only an average height. You don't have anybody that's like 50 feet tall and some people who are like 2 inches tall. Everybody kind of sits on a bell curve because certain things just don't go outside of a particular parameter. That doesn't happen in ads. In ads, we have this. 3 that are carrying literally everything. Almost every ad we make is trash, not because we made it trash, but because Meta says we're just not even going to spend on that. And then a few are like in between stages, but very, very like you don't have any that are average. You either have dunce ads or you have a few that are like high special winner. This typically means you cannot average out your ad success, right? You can't just make and just assume that eventually we'll get to like a nice average in the ad account. It usually means like 80% of what we do is not going to work. And then just a few are going to take off every single month. I have been collecting organic style content that could be pretty easily made into any sort of ad for a very, very, very long time. This has 497 different types of content, not necessarily ad content, right? So point of view trends. This is like a green screen, kind of a headline. Maybe this is a get ready with me, a CapCut template, maybe day in the life, or like a run, don't walk, go do this, right? There's a lot in here. So don't get like super worried about it because it's like, holy God, which one is it supposed to do? Very first thing, if you come over to this diagnose tab in here, this is built off of valence, intensity, self, and emotion, and will automatically select the best format type based upon the math of the emotions. So very first thing you should do, every single week, sit down, look at your winners. Take them out, pull them into Claude or wherever you use them, and say, Claude, tell me, this is a winner. Tell me what valence zones we traveled through, how intense this video was, what the actual self was. Was it aught self? Was it actual self? Was it whatever it was? And then what the emotion was. Tell me all those things. It'll bring it back real quick. Valence was high, intensity was high, self was ideal, emotion was maybe like fatigue, whatever it was. And then from there, all you have to do is come into this particular spreadsheet, set those parameters, and it'll give you a ton of concepts that will also fit that same story and emotion type.
Is it possible to see the ad first or like the video? Because how I'm thinking of it is that obviously if you have a winning ad, you pull the script, you pull the valence, blah, 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 and you want to, because to me, this is more variations than iterations, right?
That's a good point. Do you want to do variations or do you want to do iterations? I mean,
because iterations would be more hook testing, right? This is like bigger swings on the same concept.
Yeah.
No?
Yep. Yeah. Well, and that's what we were talking about is like, do we want to do?
But so it's basically how I'm understanding it. It's same message, like same pain, same mechanism. So basically completely same message, but in a different vehicle. So instead of like UPS, it's with DHL. But it's the same book that's being delivered.
Technically speaking, this would still be an iteration, not a variation, because I'm not going to do, technically this one, I know you guys can't hear it. Let me make sure this is, okay. Technically this one is what we call a one-person skit, right? So if we watch this one real quick, it's this guy talking to himself back and forth, one-person skit. That's the story type that he chose. The underlying message though, for this particular guy is literally like, okay, you can't expect to get a girlfriend if you're not going to go do all of the stuff that like, will bring people into your life. So I can take that concept and just apply it to any of these. And there'll be an iteration because it's not the same story.
So essentially, as your proposal with that spreadsheet, essentially you got, in that case, a winning skit video, TikTok video. Is yours essentially that spreadsheet that you provide, the solution is essentially do literally the same, pretty much the same script, same message, but just apply it in like a static, in a green screen, in a podcast, that kind of, essentially 100%. This spreadsheet tells you to do essentially the same thing, but just in a different format. Wow. So with a podcast, for instance, I'm just saying all this to visualize it a bit better. Hopefully this helps others out. But so essentially, if I wanted to do this as a podcast, I would have the same script, maybe like have it visually, it looks like a podcast, but maybe they're talking about it in a more serious fashion, for instance, but literally saying the same message. Is that essentially an example? I don't want to get mixed up with the technical jargon of iteration or variation, whatever, but essentially that's what you're saying, right?
100%. Yes. So the reason that the spreadsheet can go through and do this, you see these big, long like formulas I have in here, it's matching a bunch of stuff that I have in the ad library already tagged. So if we go in here, all of these 400 different things are tagged with the family type. So this is the type of content. It's a talking head, it's a direct camera, whatever it is, B-roll, blah, blah, blah. It's also tagging it by stage, exploration, evaluation, trigger, stuff, some of the stuff that we already go through with TEEP in here. Register has to do with how we're communicating this actual message, and this is being taken into account as well. Story fit. This is kind of where it's pulling all of those different like key elements in when it suggests another story that's similar.
And sorry to interrupt. I'm not sure if I've missed something here, but why do I need a spread? I'm not, like I said, I don't know if I've missed something here, but why do I need a spreadsheet to essentially say I've got a winning UGC video the way that, using that example, why do I need a spreadsheet to then know that, okay, well, I could just do this as a green screen or a podcast, whatever. Like, isn't that kind of logical that, or is there something that this spreadsheet offers that I'm missing?
If you have that in your brain already, that's awesome. Like, I don't have that is the problem. I tend to regurgitate like 3 or 4 different styles of content over and over just because I like them. And I'm like, oh, I know that this skit style works incredibly well, so I'm just going to do it again and again. My problem is over time, over the course of like 6 to 9 to 12 months, I'm going to start to reuse that same concept way too much. And then we start to get this happening where it's like, none of this is working. None of it's working. Why is this not working? It's because I'm not taking big swings.
What you just saw is a conversation between myself, an 8-figure founder, a media buyer, and a creative strategist while we worked to kind of uncover some of the creative challenges that they are facing. And we do live calls like this every single week inside the Tether Lab, which is my school community. Once you join, you're going to get access to all of my trainings. You're going to get the knowledge behind 6 years and 150 plus brand consultations that I've done. And you're also going to get one-on-one support from me. So if you want to go learn more, you can go to school.com/tether-lab, or you can click the link in the description.